Kokoro Audio and China Literature presents Volume 1 of The Birth of the Demonic Sword series by Eve of Chaos, performed and narrated by a full cast.
Darkness.
The man suddenly awoke, and that was his first thought.
Where am I?
He tried to move his limbs, only to realize that he couldn't properly feel anything.
Wait, I can't move, but can still think. I clearly remember getting shot in the chest by those gangsters. Am I in a coma?
He tried to move or open his eyes again, yet he couldn't do anything other than feel helplessly cramped in a space where there was darkness.
I guess I'm still alive? It seems that even a quick, painless death is impossible for me. Well, at least it's warm in here.
The warmth permeated his body, making the environment quite cozy.
Surely after I wake up, my parents will let me off the hook for a while. Maybe I should take this chance to get away from that house and go abroad. I reckon there must be something like a cleaning service that would hire me.
His thoughts of exploiting this near-death experience to break free from the cage he called home came easily to him.
Dad won't care too much about all that. But Mom? She will surely lose it. Nowadays, reading is the only thing I can do at home without starting a fight with them. Maybe I will lose that too.
Since he could remember, he had always loved playing games, reading books, and getting drunk. He found everything else annoying, and that had severely affected his studies ever since high school. Evidently, the situation in his house deteriorated quickly, to the point where it was difficult for him to bear. His parents would rather yell all the time than accept that university wasn't fit for him.
I guess a big part of that situation is my fault. After all, I spent most of my life being drunk somewhere or isolated with some book in hand. Not a good job as a son, indeed.
Regret emerged in him after he thought of that. If he had known better at that time, he would not have used booze as a means to vent. Maybe then the situation in his family would have been more peaceful.
Well, I can't change what has already happened. And I didn't really have many options to keep my cool while pretending all the time.
When he was 14, he figured out that something was not entirely right with him. He would see his friends going after girls with pretty clothes, emphasizing love and social status among their people. Yet, he only felt curiosity toward sex, never really being able to really bond with someone. As for human society, he couldn't help but just see a bunch of man-made rules set to force people to live together.
Weren't those rules created by men? Then as a man, I should have the right to ignore them and live the way I want to.
Time kept on passing while he was thinking, without him noticing that his thinking's speed was way lower than usual.
In the end, it's a world ruled by money. If you have it, you can do whatever you want. If not, you can only end up chained to one of the many gears of society, gathering goods until you die. What a pitiful way of living. Getting forced to follow those rules blindly, work and earn things whose imaginary value is dictated by the same rules you are subject to. True freedom is only achievable by having enough money, titles, recognition. In other words, pieces of paper. Is there even value in living a life like this?
His consciousness would stop from time to time as he would sleep or try to wake up his body. Days went by according to that simple schedule.
Maybe I'm in a permanent coma. My only release is to wait for true death from this darkness.
The darkness surrounding him started to affect his mood. The only thing keeping him sane was the warm feeling in his body. It was at that point that light appeared in that world of darkness, and it seemed to get bigger as time passed by.
Finally, a change. I should follow the...
Suddenly, some kind of compression pushed him out of the cramped space he was in toward the light. It seemed to be a slow and painful process. After some time, the world of darkness became a world of light so bright that his eyes hurt. He started hearing some cheers and voices speaking in an unknown language. When his eyes got used to the light, he could finally see what was around him. A fat, middle-aged woman was looking at him with worry, lightly touching his chest. The strange thing was that her hand seemed to cover his entire body.
The fuck is happening?
Abruptly, while he was trying to figure it out, the fat woman had already turned him to the side and lightly slapped his buttocks.
What the fuck are you doing, woman?
He thought he said it, but only a shrill cry came out of his mouth. The faces of the people in the room relaxed, and the fat lady brought the baby to the arms of a pale but beautiful woman lying on an old-fashioned bed.
It's a boy, my lady, and a pretty curious one, according to the way he looks at everything.
Even though he could understand nothing of what she was saying, the young man in the body of a baby could quickly realize the situation he got into.
Am I reborn? Wasn't it a coma?
The woman holding the baby uncovered her chest and attempted to feed him.
Wait!
Before he could say, or rather yell, anything, a liquid poured down his mouth, and he lost himself in the dizziness of his first meal.
I will name you Noah. Yes, Noah Balvan is a good name.
Noah looked at the woman feeding him with half-closed eyes. The woman had long black hair untied on her back and ice-blue eyes below her thin eyebrows.
Of course. My mother is beautiful. I believe she named me Noah. Well, it's a good name at least.
The door of the room opened, and a man in his 40s with short black hair and a stern face walked directly toward the woman on the bed.
Lily, let me see the child.
The man abruptly took Noah in his arms and raised him in the air to have a better view of the baby. The fat woman and the other two maidservants on the side of the bed lowered their heads at the sight of the man.
A bit pale and skinny, but there seems to be some kind of wits in him. He most likely will not be able to become a guard for the main family, but he might succeed as a counselor. You did a good job, Lily.
The man gave the baby back to his mother and moved toward the exit.
Rhys, he is your son and his name is Noah. Can't he aim at being more than just a simple guard?
Stopping at the doorstep, Rhys turned to look at Lily.
Even if he has my blood in his veins, he has yours too. The son of a whore should consider himself lucky enough if he's allowed to protect the descendants of the main family.
Finishing what he had to say, he left the room, leaving Lily with watery eyes. As a result, she didn't see the baby in her hands, displaying a grave stare as his father left through the door.
It seems that this family is not so simple. I should do my best to learn the language of this world as fast as I can.
After that last thought, he closed his eyes and went to sleep. 5 months had passed since Noah was reborn in that world. It was spring, or at least it seemed so from what he could see of the environment. The mansion he lived in resembled a countryside villa from his previous life, yet it had the size of a castle and was mostly made of wood, with a wall of rocks on the perimeter. Currently, he was in the arms of his new mother, peeking around while she was walking through the mansion, talking to him. Little did she know that Noah managed to understand most of what she said.
The language of this world is not so hard, mainly because it has a lot of similarities with the English of my previous world. That, and it's also thanks to Lily for never leaving my side, and constantly speaking to me.
He spent most of the last 5 months in his mother's embrace, walking around the Balvan mansion, with Lily explaining the most random things to him. Thanks to that, he had a general idea of his position in the family and how the mansion was structured. It was divided into 2 rings, outer and inner. The inner ring was composed of a 4-story building, and it was the place where the main family lived. The outer ring had 2 2-story buildings and a 3-story one, and guards, servants, and guests respectively inhabited them. They were currently on the 1st floor of the guests' building, which was reserved for them since he had the blood of the main family in him, and since Lily was the beloved concubine of Rhys. Noah's father, Rhys, was the 3rd and youngest son of the old patriarch of the Balvan family, Thomas. As such, even though they did not get access to the inner ring, they could still live a comfortable life in the outer one.
You must grow strong, little dear. The people of the inner ring will see you as a bastard and will spare no effort to abuse and bully you, especially the legitimate grandsons and granddaughters of the patriarch.
Lily kept talking, but Noah's mind was elsewhere, trying to figure out the best course of action for that new life.
I lived a life without meaning in a world full of compromises. And now that I'm reborn, I'm asked to become a tool for the main family to use at their will and endure some bullying too. It seems that I will live another life void of meaning. If I stay here, it will likely come with a lot of benefits. After all, the Balvan family seems quite wealthy. I just don't know enough about this place and its surroundings, so I can't be sure of the possibilities the outside world has to offer.
Noah was already considering running away from the family. He appreciated the affection and the efforts of this new mother, but these feelings were far from the love he should have had for a parent.
I've already had a family, and it didn't go so well. This time, I don't have to go through various experiences to form and acknowledge myself, so I can always choose wisely what suits me the most. If life in the inner circle is too hard for the sole reason of being a bastard, I won't mind abandoning the mansion. Plus, I have 25 years of experience gathered in a more advanced world, so my possibilities should be plenty.
From the clothing of the people, the structure of the buildings, the state of the furniture, and most importantly, the lack of electricity, this world was extremely behind in terms of technology compared to his previous one.
Yet, this might also be a disadvantage. My habits come from an industrialized society, and my thoughts are those of a man from the 21st century. I don't know how the people here might react to some ideas. I must be careful.
Sometimes thinking about his future, sometimes listening to his mother, the day passed and the night approached. Lily walked to a balcony to watch the stars appear in the dark sky, and Noah used this chance to study the environment outside the mansion. Over the defense wall, there were sheep grazing in the fields, and a large stone road that started from the main gate of the mansion and stretched in the distance, cutting the green fields into two halves. A crop of what seemed corn was on his right side, and a forest was barely visible on his left in the distance. It was beautiful scenery Noah wasn't used to seeing, and now that was his new world. Then he shifted his gaze to the sky, and he seemed to see the darkness enveloping the red clouds of the sunset. At first, it was like a small dot in the distance, becoming bigger and bigger as it headed in their direction. Only then did he realize that something was wrong. The darkness wasn't caused by the nightfall, but the silhouette of something darting through the clouds. It was fast, and it was getting closer. At some point, a loud roar echoed through the peaceful countryside.
It was coming from the figure in the sky. A dark creature dove from the clouds diagonally, speeding toward the flock of sheep outside the mansion wall. It was 8 meters long and had big black wings with scales all over its body. It was diving at such a high speed that Noah found it impossible to trace its movements from the cloud's edge to its imminent approach to the ground where the flock was. Suddenly, the wall was filled with a purple halo as runes appeared on its surface. The purple color of the wall spread toward the countryside in the direction of the flock. The beast seemed disturbed in its descent and tried to halt itself mid-air, spreading its wings. Yet its speed was too high, and it inevitably fell on the ground right where the purple halo was heading towards, creating a large pit. The moment it touched the dragon, smoke rose from the pit, and another roar, this time of pain, sounded in the dusk. The dragon rose to the sky again as fast as possible and stared with venomous eyes at the mansion. Smoke kept flowing out of his belly like an open wound. Apparently, the purple halo had injured the dragon. The dragon was filled with hatred as it inhaled and then spat out a tongue of red flames that took the form of a lance as it kept nearing the outer ring. Lily was frozen in fear, seeing the lance of fire coming in her direction, while Noah was still too stupefied by what he was witnessing to even recognize the danger he was in. Before the flames could reach the outer wall, though, a figure appeared midair between them. He raised his right hand and looked to mumble something which caused the lance of flames to hit something like a barrier of air. The clash between the fire and the shield lasted for some seconds before the flames were extinguished and the floating figure was visible again. He was an old man, with a straight-combed long white beard reaching his waist and unbound long hair flowing in the wind. He was wearing a robe with large sleeves, yet the right one was now burned, showing his slim but sturdy arm. He looked at the dragon right in its eyes, and the dragon did the same. That standoff lasted for about 10 seconds before the dragon roared once again and turned to leave at high speed through the sky in the direction of the forest. The old man waited a bit more in the air over the wall, looking in the direction where the dragon went. After being entirely sure that the beast was gone, he sighed and disappeared. Lily was still frozen by fear and did not notice that she was holding the frail body of Noah too tightly. This pain was what made him return to reality as he released a small groan to wake his petrified mother from her astonishment. Lily returned to reality too, softening the grip on Noah, and she was about to say something before being interrupted.
So, this must be my new grandson. Am I correct?
Noah never believed in the existence of the soul during his previous life. Living was all about empirics and reality, after all. There was no place for religious or spiritual thoughts. Yet, after he was reborn, he had started considering the idea that there was much more to be seen beyond observation. As he was staring at the old man gently standing on the edge of the balcony, seemingly appearing out of nowhere, his mind fell into chaos.
Well, a dragon just appeared all of a sudden, and it was going after some sheep. Cool, this world has dragons. Then the wall lit up and hurt the dragon, right? Yeah. Then the dragon got angry and tried to burn all of us, obviously. But this old man, who apparently is my grandfather, simply blocks the flames with one hand while flying. And then he tops it off by staring down the dragon, causing it to turn tail and flee? Where the fuck have I ended up? This guy can literally fly and fight dragons, And they want me to protect them? Is something wrong with their minds? Wait. If they want me to protect them, doesn't that mean I should be able to learn a thing or two from this old man?
His stream of thought got interrupted as Thomas entered through the balcony and slowly walked in their direction.
Yes, Lord Patriarch. This is my child Noah, son of Rhys.
Lowering her head, Lily gently exposed Noah to Thomas for him to have a better look at the baby. Maybe Lily wanted to use this occasion to impose a tinge of love in Thomas for his grandson so that he could protect him in the future. Or perhaps she was just scared stiff at the sight of the old family patriarch that she could do nothing else but to expose her son with trembling hands. Noah, in the meantime, was staring at the old man with intense eyes. Thomas didn't even notice the passion and curiosity that his stare was displaying.
People in this world can fly and fight fucking dragons! Old man, look how cute I am! Teach me how to fucking fly!
Was what he wanted to say, yet only some sounds resembling words came out of his mouth. Noah then stretched his little arms toward Thomas to appeal to his feelings, putting a face of happiness at the sight of the patriarch.
You fight dragons, but you still gotta love your kin, right?
Needless to say, the whole dragon incident had left a deep impression on him. After all, dragons were only legends in his previous world and were represented as mighty and unbeatable. While their might was up to fantasies, in this world, dragons could be fought and defeated.
Oh.
Looking at the baby happily stretching his arms toward him, Thomas could not help but show a trace of warmth on his serious face. Then he picked up Noah from his armpits and stared at him with a slight smile.
Oh, he seems pretty interested in me. There sure is some wit in this child. Maybe he will have what's needed to become a very respectable counselor within the family. I'll be sure to keep an eye on him from time to time.
Many thanks, Lord Patriarch. I'm sure that his safety and success will be guaranteed for life with just your gaze.
She bowed as she said so, with both hands forming a praying gesture.
Oh, there is no such being. You overestimate me. Here, take Rhys' son and bring him back to his room. Today's events are not for a child this young to see.
Thomas handed Noah back to Lily and disappeared from the balcony. Lily could not contain her excitement at the event that had just happened.
Did you hear, Noah? He will keep an eye out for you. The patriarch of the Balvan family will keep an eye on my son. Wonderful. And he said you could become a counselor. This is brilliant. Not only will my son be protected by a mighty cultivator, but he might also be away from the battlefield for life.
As a mother of a bastard son, Lily knew that Noah wouldn't receive the same means as the other rightful descendants of the main family. Therefore, she felt a sudden rush of relief when she heard some kind of assurance from the patriarch. Happily carrying Noah back to their sleeping quarters at the center of the first floor, she was oblivious to the fact that the baby in her arms was silent, his eyes glimmering with more determination by the minute.
A counselor, my ass. What's the point in advising people with such powers? Any problem can just be blasted away as the old man did with the Lance of Flame. To think that power like this actually existed. I must get my hands on it. I might have to risk a bit, though. It seems that the purity of the bloodline is kept in high regard inside the Balvan family. So showing some talent could in fact attract unwanted attention from the main family descendants. In saying that, I need some information to really understand what's going on.
From all the books he had read, he could imagine that the fight for succession, or even the envy of someone with a higher status than his, might end up in blood.
I have already died once, and it was by accident. I don't want to be put in a political scheme and end up dead again, being powerless about it.
A never-felt determination ran through his little body, while Lily was preparing to put him in his cradle.
A world where power is not given to men by the society they created. Instead, it seems to come from each individual. It belongs only to themselves. I believe Lily called him a cultivator. I must learn anything I can about them. But before that, I must learn to walk and read as fast as I can so that I can have some form of independence. At the same time, I can also show off some early talent in the field of literature. That could lead me to books that describe what a cultivator actually is and how to become one.
From that day on, he started eating more and more to grow stronger and get rid of the skinny physique he was born with. He began to actively try to walk, first in the cradle and then on the ground, worrying the maidservants or his mother every time he would fall from his attempts to stand on his feet. Yet that kind of pain was nothing.
A bullet in the chest hurts way more.
And so, only 8 months after his birth, Noah was standing upright on the ground, taking his first steps.
This is so fucking slow. I need to speed this up somehow. I should start running from time to time to train and feel more comfortable with my body.
Even though he was disappointed with how slow he was growing up, Lily and the maidservants were stupefied.
This baby has been trying to stand up for 3 months, and now he did it. More importantly, every time he fell, he wouldn't even cry and just try to stand up again. If we didn't try to stop him regularly, he could have gotten himself injured quite a few times by now.
The chatting maidservants were completely ignored by Lily as a sense of pride enveloped her, seeing Noah walking at the age of 8 months.
This must be the patriarch's blessing. I knew something good was bound to happen since that day.
Luckily or not, Noah's achievement was pinned to the supernatural character that was Thomas Balvan. The surprises on the first floor of the guests' building were far from over, though. After being sure of having a good balance, Noah took slow and careful steps in the direction of Lily.
Come to Mummy, little one. You did a wonderful job today. Mummy is happy.
Slowly but steadily, and with a bit of support given by the wall at his side, he arrived in front of his smiling mother. She half kneeled on the ground with arms spread, waiting for Noah to reach her embrace. Noah looked at her and smiled, then moved with spread arms toward her.
Mommy!
With that, he fell into his mother's embrace. Meanwhile, Lily and the maidservants stared at him with wide eyes.
This should be enough to grant me an early education.
Time continued to pass by, and rumors about an intellectual prodigy spread through the Balvan family.
I heard he was able to talk fluently only 1.5 years after he was born.
I heard that kid started running around every morning before breakfast only 3 months after he learned to stand up.
You won't believe me, but I personally saw that kid going alone in the library of the guest building trying to pull books out of the shelves. Believe me, I was doing the cleaning service there at that time, and I found him looking at the symbols on the books as if he could read. And he was only 2 at that time.
That's impossible. His mother's request to get him a teacher was approved 2.5 years ago. Are you saying that he knew how to read before he even got a teacher?
I'm only stating what I saw. I'm not sure he was reading, but he looked like he was trying to.
Rumors like those spread everywhere in the guests' building, passing from servant to servant. While Noah was busy forcibly pushing his body through its natural growth process, everyone else was waiting for the next record the bastard son would break. 5 years had passed since his birth in that world, with him working hard to improve himself and gain a stable foothold in the family. He kept running every day, adding some light workout to bolster his still frail body. That gave him a slim but rosy figure, and he felt like he was constantly growing stronger. Yet, even if he was more robust than the average kid, he was still just a kid. He would only do half an hour of training per day, since that was the limit of his young body. The rest of his daily routine was spent sleeping, reading, and eating large meals made of rice and meat. 2.5 years before, he had finally been assigned a teacher, which meant he could finally stop sneaking out at night, trying to decipher the strange symbols they called writing.
His teacher's name was Lee Nirain. He was one of the scholars hired by the main family to instruct their descendants, and his position in the family was quite high for a guest. Noah's father, Rhys, personally accompanied him to the outer ring, emphasizing how much the instruction process should not be taken lightly. Apparently, the scholar position was of a higher rank than Noah's own, in Rhys's eyes, since that was the first time Noah had seen his father after his birth. Lee Nirain was a man in his 60s, with gray hair tied in a ponytail and a short, black, well-kept beard. He had an apathetic face, as if nothing was of his interest, and explained things in a slow but concise manner. Yet, even that lofty character had to get used to Noah's attitude when he found out that he had learned how to read in less than 6 months. After that, he would finish every book the scholar imparted him in less and less time, and he even had time to rent books of his interest from the library on the ground floor. The servants were so used to him picking books that they would not even remind him to bring them back. At the age of 5, Noah had a general understanding of the topography near the mansion, of the social status of the Balvan family, and finally, he found something regarding cultivators. Balvan Mansion was situated in the countryside near the evergreen forest, aptly named after the trees found in the area. The wide stone road that started from the main gate flowed into an even larger road that led to the nearest big city, Moss Grove, ruled by the Shosti family. The Balvan family was an underling of the Shosti family and had to pay an annual tribute in gold or goods in order to keep its rule over their part of the countryside. They were the landlords of the 50 square kilometers surrounding Balvan Mansion and had to exact annual taxes from the villages in that area and protect them from the attack of bandits or magical beasts. Magical beasts. In this world, there were species of animals with the innate gift to absorb energy from the world and use it to empower their natural abilities. The lance of flames used by the dragon years before was an example of how the energy of the world could be used to enhance its already powerful flames by granting more range and a higher level of destructiveness. Finally, about a year before, Noah had found a book about cultivation. It was an old and heavy book written by a cultivator who wanted to spread the notion of cultivation among the commoners, which later became a classic of literature. The cultivator's name was lost over time, but the name of the book was still known to people of all cultures as the yin-yang system.
According to the book, the energy of nature is called the breath of heaven and earth, and cultivators and magical beasts absorb and store it to empower their bodies, prolong their lives, and use magical techniques. This breath can be used as a means to boost physical performance and martial techniques, or it can be linked to someone's own mental energy to release elemental attacks. The 7 elemental types are light, darkness, fire, water, earth, wind, and lightning. And someone's aptitude to one of these is decided at birth. Generally, everyone has the aptitude toward one element, yet the difference in mental energy decides their ability to manipulate that element.
Noah was currently attending a lesson with Lee Nirain about philosophy in a room on the first floor of the guests' building, but his mind was constantly wondering the topics described in the yin-yang system.
Magical beasts have an innate ability to manipulate and absorb breath, and they will learn to use it naturally in the course of their life. It can be said that their bloodline is quite advantageous, according to this aspect. Yet, heaven and earth are fair, so most of them lack the intellect to properly use their gifts. Humans, on the other hand, can make a lance out of rocks and bow and arrows out of a tree, but they need techniques to absorb and use breath, and even special devices to understand their aptitude toward an element. No wonder this book wasn't destroyed by cultivators and managed to survive till now. Even if you know the general theory behind those powers, you can't do much without the proper techniques. The best this book can do is give a better understanding of the supernatural to common folk. Heaven and earth are fair, he says. Yet if you are born into a poor family, you can just dream about obtaining techniques. Even for me, being born into a family with cultivators, it's hard to say if I'll ever be able to take a look at these magical techniques. They're my ass.
Even though Lee was engrossed in his exposition, he started to notice that Noah would just nod in answer every time he would look at him, while his eyes had been fixedly staring at the same point of the book in front of him for 1 hour. A bit enraged, Lee took a wooden stick from behind his back and slapped it on Noah's left arm. Noah lifted his head to stare at his teacher, while holding the spot where the stick had just hit.
Are you still thinking about that cultivation nonsense? How many times do I have to tell you, don't waste your time? You are just a bastard of a medium-sized noble family. Even if the Balvan had some techniques, they are not meant for you. Furthermore, literature is the real representation of humans. Cultivation is just about killing and getting killed. There is nothing noble about that.
But teacher, even the wisest man has to bow his head to the weakest magical beast. If you don't have the power to protect yourself, all your knowledge is useless.
Another hit of the stick landed on Noah's right arm. To Teacher Lee's helplessness, Noah would just hug his arm and let a little grunt out with no trace of fear ever appearing in his eyes.
What's wrong with this kid? I instructed the son of the patriarch's firstborn, and even now at the age of 25, he still fears my stick. This kid, though...
Massaging his temples, he pointed at the exit door.
Never mind. Just go and don't wander the library all night like you usually do. I'll see you again in 2 days, and you will have better forgotten about all that cultivation garbage.
Noah got up, picked up his books, bowed, and then left the room. Noah's life kept going. His long black hair had grown decently long, so his mother would often comb it for him. Lily kept managing the first floor of the guests' building, occasionally meeting Rhys deep in the night. She would often beg him to do more for his son, explaining Noah's interests in cultivation and martial arts. But Rhys would always refuse, hiding behind the rules of the main family.
I can't do anything about him, Lily. The rules are fixed. His position only allows him to get access to the low-level techniques, and that is only permitted if he shows some merit as a family guard and completes some missions. You can send him there and see how it goes.
Lily's face darkened. The truth was that Noah wasn't spending his time in the library anymore since he turned 8. He would instead go to the guards building, doing chores in exchange for some combat tips.
Our son is smart. He has already figured out that he cannot find anything relevant about cultivation in the library and has shifted his attention to the guards, hoping to obtain something valuable. He is only 10 now. He must be 13 to join the guards officially, but he has been doing chores for them for 2 years now, only to get a better starting point. Can't you give him anything? You did that with your other 2 children. Ugh!
Know your place. Remember that it was me who allowed you to give birth to that bastard. The only chance you exist here in the first place is because you are merely easing the grief I feel for my dead wife. Don't you dare compare the son and daughter Rebecca gave me with the son of a lowly whore. I'm the one allowing the 2 of you to live. Never forget that.
She recomposed herself in a half-kneeling position, with her head lowered and a metallic taste enveloping her mouth.
I'm sorry, my lord. Please forgive my selfish requests.
She followed that by completely kneeling, bowing forward with her head touching the ground.
Now come here and start making yourself busy. I'll have you working extra for making me angry.
Meanwhile, in the guards building, a kid of about 10 to 11 years old was carrying 2 large buckets of water to a group of guards sweating under the sun. This kid was, of course, Noah, doing chores for the soldiers. Since he had understood that he could not achieve anything by reading books, he started searching for other ways to come into possession of cultivation techniques.
Apart from breaking into the inner building and stealing the books, which was impossible and taboo, the only option he had was to mingle with the family guards and obtain enough merits to be granted access to the inner circle. It was just 2 days ago when he had confronted his teacher about his plan. This had resulted in Lee scolding him for half a day before giving up and going back to the inner circle, while his mother only hugged him.
It seems even I won't be able to change your mind. Just be careful.
Even though Noah could see a trace of disappointment in Lily's eyes, he could not help but follow his decision. He didn't want to give up hope and live another worthless and unappealing life, now that he had seen hope to be more than a normal man.
Yet, she really loves me. After all this time, she still keeps seeing that father of mine. I assume more for my sake, and not any sort of affection, that she endures his behavior.
Lately, whenever he went back to his quarters, he would find new bruises on his mother's body, and yet he had never seen Lily without a smile when she looked at him.
I guess I should try a little harder in this life. I don't think I can live happily if I don't do my best to take care of her.
A slight smile appeared on his face after that thought. Sadly, it was interrupted by a guard.
Hey, Horson! The fuck are you doing? Smiling like an idiot while carrying our water.
He snapped back to reality and hurried himself to the group of guards to deliver the buckets.
I'm sorry, honorable sirs. I hope your training went well. Maybe you want to ease your mind ranting about how hard your workout is. Which are the harder positions to maintain? How to—
Shut your mouth. The last guy you scammed was sent by the captain to clear the latrines for 3 months. No one will teach you anything. But if you want to help us like usual, I bet there'll be more than one candidate.
He was right, though. In the previous 2 years, Noah had managed to obtain some techniques by faking innocence in front of some lonely and tired soldiers. He would usually choose the ones that seemed excluded or bullied, so that he could start some kind of connection with his status as a bastard, and then he would ask them to show their forms and techniques to be impressed and boost their morale. In the last year, though, the higher-ups of the guards building started to notice his true intentions and chose to punish the guards revealing important information. They didn't dare punish him, since he was still a young kid, and even if he was a bastard, he had the blood of the main family in his veins. As for the usual way of helping, it basically consisted of the guards hitting Noah a couple of times till he was on the ground, as a form of combat training. It must be stated, the idea of combat training was actually Noah's once he knew he couldn't trick any more soldiers for techniques. After all, during his previous life, he had gained almost no fighting experience, so he had to make up for that somehow.
I guess there is no other option. Let's go for a round. Should be fun.
The group of guards cheered when they heard Noah's answer and started playing some hand games to decide who would be the lucky one to teach the shameless kid a lesson. In the meantime, Noah went to the training swords rack to pick a short saber out of habit. The guards building featured a large courtyard at the center to provide for a spacious and private place to train. Noah had only managed to get in there thanks to his initial fake innocence and his diligence in doing chores. The deposit was on the side of the yard, so after a couple of minutes he came back to the group with a steel blunt short saber. The guards were, by then, used to this kid able to skillfully wield a saber with his left hand.
Kid, today it's my turn. I'm still mad about the last time.
The guard standing at a distance from his group was almost 2 meters tall and had a burly musculature. He was bald and had a long curly beard, a hairy chest, and bulging muscles. Being manly as described and shirtless too, he could easily be depicted as the archetype of the perfect soldier.
Oh, come on, Mickey. It was just a sword form. Not even that well done.
Hearing this, a tinge of anger appeared on Mickey's face as he started to approach Noah.
Using a weapon wouldn't be fair since you're still a kid, so I'll limit myself to these arm guards. I know you're training with the ice-fire revolving technique, so don't expect me to go easy on you.
Mickey began sprinting towards Noah while using his arms in a crossed guard to cover his head and chest. Noah fell into a position he had learned from a sword style and waited for the right opportunity, shifting his weight on his front leg, ready to sprint at any time. When the guard was 1.5 meters far from him, Noah launched forward, lowering himself to dodge the guard's charge and hide from his line of sight. He was basically half the guard's height after all. While he was sprinting, he slashed his saber diagonally to the right leg of the guard. An arm guard appeared in the saber's trajectory. The opponent had anticipated his move. Without waiting any further, the guard pushed himself toward Noah, aiming to hit him with his already lowered shoulder. Contrary to expectations, Noah did not dodge, but instead, he did a strange twist with his left wrist that held the saber. This caused the saber to disappear for a second, only to reappear on Mickey's neck without him noticing at all.
Yes! I finally did it in real combat! Now, I guess it's time to lose.
Noah let go of the saber, and the burly man hit him in the chest. He flew for 2 meters before landing on the ground, seemingly unhurt. However, the damage soon caught up, and he fell to his knee, while coughing a bit of blood.
You're lucky I went easy on you, little Noah. If I had used my full strength, you would have been bedridden for at least 6 months.
As expected. You sure are strong, Mickey. But I really should go home and rest. Your mighty strength is hard to digest.
Noah got up and hurried toward his building. As he was leaving, he heard the group of guards laughing and yelling something that resembled his name. In a room overlooking the sparring ground, 2 figures were staring across the courtyard at the group of men who were mocking the bald soldier.
So, what do you think of him?
Well, he clearly won the round, but still faked his loss. He's conscious of his position in the family, so he tries to lay low as much as possible. Yet he can't give up on his search for power. He's surely a genius. The rumors were not false. I didn't think that he would have learned the snake wrist technique in less than 2 years. What's your opinion of him, Captain?
If Mickey had used a weapon and his full strength, that kid wouldn't have stood a chance. Yet, he used his age and appearance to his advantage, exploiting our men as training for the few things he learned in these years. He's calculative, manipulative, fearless of pain, and of great determination. Could the incident with the dragon 10 years ago have twisted his mind? To think that a kid can be so relentless in his greed for power honestly scares me a bit.
The 2 men continued staring at the guards in the yard in silence. Outside, the guard eventually got bored of mocking Mickey and agreed on a round of wine to end the day.
So, what should we do with him, Captain?
If that child is left free like this, it's just a matter of time before some major trouble happens. It's pretty obvious that he will not stop his research for techniques. I just don't know how far he is willing to go.
Captain, just asking for orders.
After working together for so many years, they had a tacit understanding of how their conversations went. Seeing the captain with his eyes closed, there was only so much prodding could do, so he waited for them to open again.
We train him.
In the meantime, Noah had returned to his quarters and found out that his mother was still in her room, door closed. He chose to take a bath to wash over the dust from the chores of the day. Then he ate an abundant meal and went to sleep. Around midnight, a servant came to his room to wake him up with a bowl of water. After sending the servant away, he washed his face and put himself in a cross-legged position on the floor, breathing in a strange but rhythmic way. Noah was used to it. His body muscles would bulge from time to time only to return to the standard size with a slight increase of volume. After about an hour, he woke up from his meditation with traces of sweat on his body.
The ice-fire revolving technique is only a way to strengthen the body through forcibly absorbing yang energy during midday and yin energy during midnight. Compared to standard cultivators, I have to do this actively instead of passively. My body is now saturated with breath, bestowing me the strength of a 14 to 15-year-old. Until my body grows more, it won't allow me to absorb any more energy.
He stood up and picked a short metal saber from under his bed. He repeatedly flicked his wrist, making the saber disappear and reappear in another position from a different angle. After he did this exercise with both his hands for a while, he put the saber back under his bed, lying on it, and then fell into a state of deep thinking.
The snake wrist technique is just a trick to surprise your enemies and finish them in one hit. It's not really worth being called a combat technique. Its usage is even limited by the quantity of breath I can hold in my wrists. The other forms that I learned from the guards are either part of a set or are about weapons that I still cannot wield. What should I do now? The guards are wary of me, so they won't reveal any kind of information. Do I really have to wait 3 years before officially applying for the family guards? That's way too slow, especially since I can't make any valuable progress during these years. Maybe I could steal some books from the guards, but that would require me knowing which techniques are worth the risk, who has them in the form of a book, and it would also require me to escape from the mansion after that. There is the death penalty for crimes regarding cultivation and related crimes.
Lily's smiling face appeared in his mind, and he felt a lump in his throat.
I don't think I can leave after all. To be more precise, I don't want to leave. Apart from my mother's problem, the technique issue remains. I know this family has the techniques, but I'm unsure of the outside world.
Light struck the window. The sun was rising.
Never mind. Maybe I'm too greedy. I always knew that I would have to catch up with the lucky brats in the main family at some point. My body is still growing, and the ice-fire revolving technique can keep up until I turn 18. In the worst-case scenario, I can still be admitted to the inner circle through merits with the guards and scam some of the other descendants of the main family. No. The worst-case scenario is me scamming them and getting killed in response. Life here is too peaceful. I'm starting to forget my position. I wouldn't be surprised if there is some servant giving information to the inner circle after the display of abilities in my early days.
Are you done with your brainstorming session? I'd prefer not to wait any longer than I have to.
Noah's body stiffened as he shot to the opposite point of the room toward the exit door. Then, he slammed into something and fell to the ground. Some blood came out of his nose and reached his mouth due to the clash. The object he ran into was the body of the intruder and had moved toward the door before he could.
I can't escape.
He was ready to turn back and pick the saber up from under the bed.
Relax, I'm not here to hurt you. Actually, I think you might like what I'm about to offer.
Noah stopped and thought for a bit. Then he slowly turned around to take a look at the man. He looked like an average man in his 40s, medium height, no beard, and some slightly long blonde hair. He had a playful expression and wore a slight smile.
Who are you?
I'm the Vice Captain of the Guards of the Outer Ring, William Challi. I'm here by order of the Captain of the Guards. We want to recruit and train you. Looking to be proactive instead of reactive, for when you eventually make a mess of everything.
Noah was speechless for a moment, but composed himself, putting on the most amiable smile he could muster. Honestly, he didn't really need to try that much. After all, he was still a cute 10-year-old child.
Mess? I wouldn't make a mess. Mother would get angry at me. I asked those guards how I should train, but
Oh, cut the crap. We know that you learned the snake wrist technique, and that you faked your match with Mickey. Also, do you really want to keep scamming soldiers for some shitty stuff like the ice-fire revolving technique? That thing's just a bootleg of a cultivation technique.
Noah went from scared of knowing that his disguise was so easily discovered to dispirited when he heard that the most complete technique he had learned was considered an imitation.
Will you make me a cultivator, capable of fighting dragons?
William was a bit taken aback by the honesty of such a question. He looked at Noah in the eyes, and, sensing his determination, he chose to answer in full fairness.
The road of cultivation is a test of your will. People with the best techniques might not reach the level of the patriarch in their entire life, while people with just a simple respiratory technique might cleave the sky in two. I won't hide it from you. I can't teach you the best techniques the Balvan family has, but I will surely put you on the path of cultivation. Honestly speaking, this is the best bet you'll have, considering your birth situation. So,
I accept.
Looking at Noah, William could now see that part of the honesty he showed before had disappeared, replaced by determination and scheming eyes.
What a frightening kid. I can't lower my guard for even a second. All right then. From now on, you must address me as Master.
The day after he accepted William as his master, Noah arrived early in the morning to the guards' building as per his instructions. He had explained the situation to his mother the previous morning, and seeing the new bruises on her body, he could not help but feel gloomy. He entered the building and went straight to the first floor. The men guarding the stairs had been informed of his arrival and let him pass without trouble.
You're early.
Watching the yawning figure that was now his master dressed in a white gym suit, he felt a bit of trepidation. Making sure to put on a studious face, he did a slight bow with his left fist in his right hand.
Your disciple was eager to learn, Master.
William didn't even look at him and gestured to follow him. Together, they entered a spacious room with weapons on the walls and some wooden dummies sparse around. William pointed at the floor.
Sit. I'm not really good at mornings, so I hope to explain everything just once. Then you can ask me questions.
Noah almost immediately sat cross-legged on the floor. The yearning was clearly visible in his eyes. William sorted his thoughts for a little, then addressed his new disciple.
First, I want to make sure that you understand the reason the captain chose to let you enter the guards. We can't have people scamming men for their rightfully earned techniques, especially a kid in your position. Weighing the pros and cons of the situation, we decided that it was better to use that greed of yours for our needs, rather than punish you. So, remember to thank the captain for allowing you to keep your hands when you see him.
A drop of cold sweat ran through Noah's back. He finally realized how reckless he had been.
The facade of the kid doesn't work against powerful people. Or perhaps they just don't care that I'm a kid.
Second, we won't give away anything to you. A guard has to collect merits to earn rewards, and you will be no different. Yet, since you are now my disciple, I will give you something to start with. Consider it a loan that you will repay through serving in the guards. You will have to spill blood for your family to obtain what you want. Do you understand me?
William looked into Noah's eyes with probing intention. His situation wasn't exactly a secret, so it was reasonable to question his will to protect the Balvan family.
I think I get the message he wants to convey. He is afraid that, since I'm a bastard, I might be holding grudges against the Balvan. and exploiting the guards as a means to strengthen myself and get revenge. He is not wrong, but he's totally missed the reason.
Looking conflicted and pensive, Noah lowered his head, only to raise it with an even more determined face.
Your disciple understands.
William stared at him, trying to decipher his face.
If he's lying, he sure is good at it.
Then he gave up on understanding the kid in front of him.
Then it's settled. You are now the youngest member to ever serve among the guards of the Balvan family. Our duties mostly consist of solving issues with bandits and magical beasts inside Balvan family territory. It's the duty of the troops in the inner circle to protect the members of the main family. I will explain more about missions later. For now, pay attention. I'm starting with the part you almost lost your hands for.
Needless to say, Noah's attention skyrocketed.
You've already read the book Yin-Yang System, so I can skip the part about breath and the elements. Human cultivation can be divided into 3 centers of power. The Dantian, or center of energy, the body, and the mind, or sea of consciousness, all 3 being deeply connected. The Dantian is in your lower abdomen, and it's usually formed by the age of 15. It is the place where cultivators accumulate breath, and once accumulated, can be used to nourish the body and the mind as a result. The body is the shell of a cultivator, and can be nourished by flooding it with breath. The stronger it is, the more stable your Dantian and mind will be. You've already started nurturing it with the ice-fire revolving technique. The sea of consciousness is at the center of your brain, and it's the place where your mental energy generates and dwells. Enlarging your sea of consciousness will not only give you more space to store mental energy and raise its production, but it will also sharpen your senses and quicken your thoughts. It is said that at some level you can even start predicting imminent dangers. Now you can start with your first round of questions.
Noah closed his eyes and repeated what his master had just said in his mind to memorize it. After scanning through the pieces of information a couple of times, he found 2 things he was unsure of.
Master, I have 2 questions. Haven't you said that the ice-fire revolving technique is just an imitation of a cultivation technique? If the Dantian is formed at the age of 15, does this mean that I cannot cultivate for the next 5 years?
True body-nourishing methods use the breath in your Dantian. In comparison, the ice-fire revolving technique is just a process to forcibly store some breath that will be used naturally as nourishment by your body. The difference lies in the quantity of breath used, besides the fact that the technique you practice can only accumulate 1/10 of what you could accomplish by using your Dantian. Moreover, you should have clearly felt that this technique is bound to the physical limits of your body, while real body-nourishing methods can allow you to break those limits. As for the other question, yes, the usual age at which a human has completely formed his Dantian is 15. Yet, as I told you, the 3 centers of power are deeply connected. You've probably already sped up your Dantian's process by practicing the ice-fire revolving technique. Who knows? You might have already gained some months in terms of growth.
Noah's eyes lit up.
This means that I can accelerate the process by training the other 2 centers of power. Wait, something sounds weird. Doesn't that mean that when someone trains all 3 of them at the same time, its growth will be exponential?
A confused expression appeared on his face. Eyebrows knitted together. He looked at his master and was about to ask more questions, but he was interrupted.
You will understand more once you start practicing. Cultivation is innately an act of defiance against heaven and earth, since we take its power and make it ours. So the process is extremely long and painful. Therefore, since the 3 centers of power are connected, if it's true that empowering one will affect the other 2, it's also true that leaving behind one will slow the growth of the other 2. But as I have said, you will understand it once you begin your cultivation journey.
William then sat on the ground and took out a pile of sheets from beneath his suit.
I will provide you with a training method for your sea of consciousness. and let you choose a martial art plus a body-nourishing method that doesn't need a dantian out of the ones I sorted out for you. These sheets are only the general description of the techniques, so come closer and read them carefully. Remember to pick those in line with your traits and needs.
Before he could even put the sheets on the ground, Noah was already sitting on his knees in front of him.
This fucking kid didn't even run this fast when he was running away from me. Take note that you will have to change the body-nourishing method once you form a dantian, and that the martial arts use breath to express their real power. Therefore, currently you are limited to one breath you gather in your body.
After the last warning, he laid the sheets on the floor, with body nourishing on the right and martial arts on the left, and watched with a slight smile as his disciple read them with eager eyes. It seemed he could consume them with just one stare.
He certainly has the will of a cultivator. I wonder how far he can go.
Thank you for listening to this sample of Birth of the Demonic Sword, Part 1 by Eve of Chaos. If you enjoyed this sample, you may listen to the rest of the story by purchasing it through www.kokoroaudio.com or from the platforms shown on screen.